And hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. I hope you've strapped yourselves in today, because what we witnessed at Prime Minister's questions wasn't just the usual political theatre, it was a total, unmitigated disaster for Keir Starmer.
Have respect for Henry's family, and then acts in this way. They are a grieving family.
Mr. Blash, please, it's a very important question. I want to hear the Prime Minister. If you want to carry on.
And a massive mask-off moment for the entire Labour establishment. We are watching a government that is quite literally glitching out from reality in real time. I want to start with a question for you lot, and I want you to be honest with me. Do you feel safer? Do you feel more heard? Or do you feel even a penny better off than you did 6 months ago? Because according to the lot in Downing Street, everything is sunshine and rainbows. They're telling us the adults are back in the room, but we can see the chaos with our own eyes on every high street and in every police station, can't we? We've got Nigel Farage standing up, speaking for the silent majority.
Can I urge the Prime Minister to consider this? It is now clear to growing millions in this country that we're living under two-tier policing. The instructions that are given.
A wall of sneering, heckling, and what can only be described as shameless gaslighting from a Prime Minister who seems more interested in protecting a narrative than protecting the public. Drop a yes or no in the comments right now. Do you trust a single word coming out of Downing Street at the moment? Because I'll tell you this, the disconnect between the official version of Britain and the reality on the ground has never been wider. If you think Starmer is out of his depth, I want to see those comments flooding in. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of this absolute car crash of a PMQs session, we need to understand the game. You see, PMQs isn't just about answering questions, it's about managed perception. For decades, the establishment has used this flaw to maintain the illusion that the system works. But there's a history here you need to know. The concept of two-tier policing isn't something Nigel Farage just made up for a laugh. It's the result of decades of institutional EDI, equality, diversity and inclusion, policies being baked into the core of the British state. Since the Macpherson report in the late 90s, the police haven't been looking at crime, they've been looking at community impact. Why does this matter to you sitting at home? It matters because it changes the very nature of justice. First, it creates a selective enforcement model where certain groups are handled with kid gloves to avoid unrest, while the hard-working taxpayer gets the book thrown at them for a mean tweet. Second, it destroys social cohesion, because when people see the law applied differently based on who you are, they stop respecting the law entirely. Third, it demoralizes the rank-and-file police officers who are being told by their away-with-the-fairies bosses to prioritize optics over public safety. The government is treating our tax money like a blank check for their best mates in the NGO sector and the woke administrative state. They tell us the cupboards are bare, yet they find billions for international climate finance or taxpayer-funded hotels for people who shouldn't be here. It's a political shell game. They tell you there's no money for your GP or your local library, but then they hire thousands of diversity officers to tell you that your history is problematic. I have to ask, when did common sense become a radical political position? When did it become extreme to suggest that the law should be blind and applied equally to everyone, regardless of their background? Let's get into the meat of it. Nigel Farage stood up and brought up the tragic death of Henry Novak. He pointed out something that is becoming a reality on the ground for millions, the existence of written instructions telling police to treat different ethnic groups differently. Farage,
you must treat different ethnic groups in different ways. That,
said,
apart from
the instructions that are given to police officers from police bosses are clear and written down. It says you must treat different ethnic groups in different ways. Now look at the reaction. The Labour benches erupted. They didn't erupt because he was wrong, they erupted because he was right, and they hated hearing it. The street-level view versus the official statistics. The government will tell you that crime is statistically stable, but let's look at the consequences of that lie. It insults the intelligence of the British-born and bred population, who see shoplifting going unpunished every single day. It creates no-go zones, where the police are literally afraid to intervene for fear of being called racist by a mob. It leaves vulnerable women and girls at the mercy of groups that the state is too terrified to properly investigate. I've got subscribers telling me they can't get a copper to come out for a home invasion, yet we see dozens of officers deployed to arrest someone for a Facebook post. That is the definition of two-tier policing. And then we have Keir Starmer's response. It was frankly disgusting. He used a grieving family as a human shield.
The grieving family have asked us not to respond in the way that the leader of Reform has responded. They've asked us not to. They have lost their son in the most appalling circumstance. They make a simple plea of us as human beings to please not exploit
to avoid
that.
answering a direct question about police policy. He said his response has been to appeal for rage. It shows exactly who he is. Let's translate that Starmer speak. When he says appealing for rage, what he actually means is highlighting the legitimate concerns of the public that I want to ignore. He is gaslighting an entire nation. By refusing to acknowledge the two-tier reality, he is validating the feeling that the state has abandoned the silent majority, fueling the very rage he claims to despise by leaving people with no democratic outlet for their grievances, proving that he is more concerned with his progressive credentials than with the actual safety of Henry Novak's peers. How can he say he has respect for the family while simultaneously ignoring the very policy failures that lead to these tragedies? It's a mask-off moment for Sir Keir Starmer. He thinks we're stupid. He thinks if he uses a somber voice and talks about decency, we won't notice the country is falling apart. Let me know what you think about that specific point down below. Is Starmer using decency as a weapon to silence legitimate debate? And then Kemi Badenoch comes in. She points out the disappearing messages and the fact that unemployment has risen every month under Labour. She calls Starmer a caretaker PM for Andy Burnham.
Everyone in this House knows that he is just a caretaker, keeping the seat warm for the Mayor of Manchester. But it doesn't matter who's in charge, Labour MPs will keep asking who can they tax to pay more benefits.
This is the internal power struggle of the Labour Party laid bare. They are a divorced from reality cult that thinks they can tax their way to growth. Higher taxes hurt the local economy by killing off the small businesses that are the lifeblood of our high streets. More benefits destroy social cohesion by creating a dependency trap that devalues hard work. The disappearing messages show a total lack of accountability that insults every single taxpayer who has to keep every receipt for 5 years or face the HMRC.
We need to zoom out for a second. If we keep going down this road, where the law is selective, where the borders are open, and where the taxpayer is treated like a bottomless ATM, there won't be a country left for our grandkids. We are watching the managed decline of a great nation. Look at other countries. You go to Dubai, you follow the law, or you leave. Simple. You go to parts of the US that have embraced this soft-on-crime woke nonsense, like San Francisco, and you see cities that have literally collapsed into open-air drug dens. Britain is at a crossroads. We are currently choosing the San Francisco model over the common sense model. No other country would allow its police force to operate under ethnic-based guidelines and expect to remain a unified nation. It's lunacy. Now, I know what the woke media, the BBC, Sky, The Guardian, will say tomorrow. They'll say Farage was incendiary. They'll say he exploited a tragedy. They'll use all the buzzwords to avoid the one thing they can't handle, the truth. They'll try to dismantle the argument by calling it populism. But all populism means in 2024 is saying things that are true but make the elite uncomfortable. They want to keep you in a state of perpetual confusion. They want you to think that what you see with your own eyes isn't actually happening. But we know better. We see the two-tier reality in our schools, in our hospitals, and on our streets. The verdict is clear. This government is in a state of total collapse after only a few months. Starmer is a passive, glitched-out leader who is more afraid of his backbenches and the woke NGOs than he is of the British public. He is a caretaker for a radical agenda that the people never voted for. I've given you the facts. Now you give me your thoughts. Are we living in a two-tier Britain? Is Starmer just keeping the seat warm for a more radical leftist? Smash that like button, hit subscribe so we can keep fighting this gaslighting together, and I'll see you in the next one. Don't let them silence you.